So, hey, we're back. It's 3 o'clock. As promised, at the top of the hour, we're a couple of minutes late because my celebrity friend here was too busy passing out donuts and signing autographs out in his foyer. But I'm here with Rick Rano, who is actually my best friend here in this community, somebody I've known since our days at Blendon Junior High School. And I'm so pleased to introduce Rick into our Facebook Live sessions. I have personally been so proud of all of your involvement over these years. I've watched it all. Rick has served as president of the Westerville Area Realtors Association. Then he served as president of the Westerville Area Chamber of Commerce. He was named Businessman of the Year here by the Chamber, and then served as president of Sunrise Rotary. And now you're the president of Neighborhood Bridges, our board. And I really appreciate that. But, you know, Rick, we're here because we've been talking with community leaders all day about the wonderful community that we live in and Neighborhood Bridges. So, you know, just like I have, you've lived here even longer than me, and you are a community leader, and you've done a lot for folks here. But what would you say about Westerville and how it's developed, and maybe what are its strongest assets today?
First of all, thanks for allowing me to come on here. I appreciate it. And it's always good to be amongst one of my best friends of all time. So it's good to be here. Westerville's interesting. We moved here in 1966. We came from northern Minnesota. My dad was the parks director here, the first full-time director the city ever hired. It was in 1966, and I was 2 years old. So when we came here, it was a small, village, small town. Really had a small town feel. Throughout the years, we saw a lot of growth. And then after leaving high school, I moved out west for 12 years and came back. And that's when I saw a lot of the growth, because a lot of the housing boom, was in the late 70s when we were, junior high, high school. And then, it evolved into the 80s and 90s. So you saw the development of the north end of Westerville. So I think that Westerville, its growth over the years, but I think that the one thing that always remained constant was the people. I always felt like it still is a small town feel, and I really like that. I think that when we work with clients, they really identify Westerville as that small town feel, even though the population has gone from 7,000 back in 1966 to 40,000 now, but probably the surrounding areas is probably 80,000. So it has grown tremendously, but I still think that the people are the number one, thing about Westerville that just keeps it going, because caring people.
That's been a common theme all day long, Rick, as we've met with community leaders. And, whether it's the chamber or the schools or the city or really the business community, everybody pitches in here. There's not a shortage of compassion or kindness in Westerville.
I think that's true, but one of the other things that I've noticed just since Neighborhood Bridges has gotten involved, and thanks to your leadership on that, for just really taking this idea that you worked on and thought about, not just overnight, but this has been a culmination of who you are, growing up, and how we grew up together, serving on student council together in high school.
Yeah.
And families were remained close throughout the years, but the one thing that is just so good is that even though we've grown, and even though there's compassion with people, it seemed like there was a little bit out of balance. That Westerville was probably, it was evolving as a middle class and maybe upper middle class community, but yet we still have a lot of people that are in need. And that was the one thing you identified, is that there is a need in the community. We can't, say there isn't. We can't hide from it. We can't, shut our doors when we drive into our garage at night. We have to identify that there are people that need help, and they need people like yourself and other people who are stepping forward every day to make sure that, that there's a way to bridge that. And, therefore the Neighborhood Bridges was hatched out of that. So that was great on your part, and we love to support it. There's also other community, groups out there that are doing great things as well. So, I think that's the one thing you identified is when you started this, it wasn't, hey, I want to be everything to everybody, but I want to see where I can fit in to maybe bridge some gaps that aren't being served in the community. So I think, that's an amazing part on you, that you were willing to just fit in where you could and create a service for the needs that are out there, while still playing, very nice and kind with other people that are out there doing some similar things, whether it's through the Ministerial Association. You have Kiwanis, and you have, Sertomas, and you have Rotary, and you have all these groups that are doing things, and it's just nice to see that, you're able to find out where you can make a difference.
That's so well said, Rick, and you've got an insider's point of view on this, and I think that, I don't know, I just feel like saying that I think that people like Scott Marrier and the West Roy Resource Ministry have set the example here, and they are, I think, what I've learned is, one of the strongest and most successful food pantries in Central Ohio, which is wonderful, but it also illustrates a tremendous need that exists.
Yeah.
And so we're happy to bridge to them. Neighborhood Bridges is not in the food business because we have Warm.
Yeah.
And we've developed a very symbiotic relationship with them. And again, I think all the organizations that you've mentioned have really kind of set the tone for caring for one another here in Westerville.
Well, and I think Scott's a mutual friend of both of ours.
Right.
And I have the highest respect for Scott and his wife, and what they do, and I know you do too, but that's really important. The interesting thing is, I have somebody that's reached out to me that has a nonprofit and is asked, how can, they help, because they help with Uganda.
Right.
And I said, the perfect person to talk to is Rick, because he's been through this. And so that's what I like about Westerville, is Rick took a phone call from me and just said, I told him somebody needs your help. And, he said, I'll do whatever I can to help out. And that, to me, that's Westerville. Being able to do that when somebody calls you and says somebody needs help, it's not, well, what do they need, or how that's going to affect me. That didn't even enter into the equation. It was just, sure, how can I help and when can I meet? So I appreciate that. That's good stuff.
Well, I'm going to share one more story before we go, but it's illustrative of how the idea of Neighborhood Bridges was designed. And you might remember this, but this was several years ago, and we lost a young man on the Westerville South basketball team who died suddenly. And we were all in meetings and not together, and we came together, a number of people in this community, through our phones.
Yeah.
And you remember this?
Yeah.
And I think the community generated about $5,000 in 48 hours for that family, to support that family. And that is how this works in Westerville.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea really for Neighborhood Bridges was born, was we do have wonderful diversity here, but we certainly don't have a shortage of kindness that exists here.
Yeah, that's it. You bring that story up, and I get a little teary on that one, because that does bring back a really unfortunate thing that happened. Imagine if your teenage son or daughter, passed away at age 16, 17 years old. Just the outpouring, and nobody did it, for any reason. Just, you led that just to, to make sure that a family was, was comforted and had, some stability after that event. I think since then we've seen even more of that, and it's, you and I know this, that, we do this to each other all the time. We send a text message, hey, somebody's in need, and it just grows, and all of a sudden text messages start coming in. So we've done other things like that, but that one's a real special one. That's one that really brings back some memories, but that's good.
Rick, thanks for sharing your day with us today. Sure. You're a dear friend, you're a member of the family, and thanks for all your leadership in Westerville. And I know that there are so many people that are grateful for what you've done, and we certainly are on the Neighborhood Bridges side. Yeah. So we appreciate it. Thanks for joining us today.
Glad to help. What can we do today as far as the giving?
Okay, that was nice.
Yeah, because
so it's the Columbus Foundation. Today's the big give, and it started at 10 o'clock this morning, and it runs through noon tomorrow. We'll continue to post a specific link. You actually donate through the Columbus Foundation today, and what they've done is they've waived all of their administrative fees, so there are no banking charges. They also, if you donate $20 or more, they've enlisted a host of Columbus area businesses that offer you gifts today for your donation, which is a very nice way of supporting organizations like ours. And then they have $1.3 million of funds that they're using to amplify everyone's gift.
Okay.
So if you go on today, we'll continue to provide this link to you. You have until noon tomorrow. And we're just trying to continue to build the bridge.
Okay. So for all of you out there listening, if you get an opportunity, please join today. I'll be making my donation after we get done. Whatever you can give is greatly appreciated. It can be small, it can be medium, it can be large. Anything you do is greatly appreciated. And thank you for supporting this and other efforts.
Thanks, Rick.
All right.
Thank you.